I've been in the health and wellness space for almost 25 years. And throughout that time, I've learned a lot about how we can improve our quality of life, as well as how we can improve or lengthen our health span. And one statistic that I heard many years ago that always stuck with me was how our indoor air quality is 2 to 5 times more polluted than our outdoor air quality. And that's according to the US Environmental Protection Agency. And given that we spend 90% of our time indoors, we're more exposed to indoor air pollutants than for longer periods of time than outdoor pollutants. So, some examples of what these pollutants can be: cleaning products, smoke, new furniture, a new computer, even products like clothing can off gas, and building materials. And I remember back in 2007, my husband and I renovated our home, and one of the key criteria for choosing the person, a builder who would work with us, was that making sure that we used green materials, environmentally friendly materials, but also materials that it didn't exude any off gassing. So I didn't want to have, my goal was to not have a house that had that newly renovated house smell, because that was the thing that drove me the most crazy, because I'm like, I know that actually that new house smell was actually linked to indoor air pollutants. And those pollutants can last anywhere for, weeks to months after the renovation. And the same thing goes for, by the way, when you buy a new car, I always try to buy one that isn't brand new, that's a demo, that's been on the lot for a couple of months, or perhaps a used car, because I don't want to inhale those pollutants. So I'm excited about today's guest because we are going to talk about indoor air pollutants and also what you could do about them. But before I bring in my guests, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Andrea Donsky. I'm a nutritionist for almost 20 years. I'm a menopause educator, soon to be published menopause researcher, and I'm the co-founder of wearemorphus.com, a company that helps to empower you to take control of your health and symptoms in perimenopause and menopause with nutrition, lifestyle, and supplements. Today I'm speaking with Mike Feldstein. He's the founder of Jaspr and an air quality expert. With a background in wildfire restoration, air quality consulting, and home remediation during some of the biggest natural disasters, Mike started Jaspr to innovate in air science and technology. His goal is to protect air quality and improve human health using the latest air quality science. Now, here's Mike. Welcome to Menopause Reimagined, Mike.
Thanks for having me. Looks like we're used to be neighbors.
I know, what a small world it is. And I'm very happy to have you on because I've been in the health and wellness industry for almost 25 years, and I'm very familiar with air quality, especially when it comes to indoor air quality. And I know that you're an expert. So I really wanted to talk today about, and I think we should start off with explaining what air quality means. Like, what is it? We all know that, like, oh, there's pollutants in the air and there's things that aren't good for us. But explain what that means and why we should care about the air that we're breathing.
So yeah, first of all, it's like what is air in the first place? Um, air is very much like water. It's 78% nitrogen, about 20% oxygen, and the rest is 0.4% CO2, and then the rest is like methane and argon and a few other little gases. And it's this wonderful stuff that we're able to live inside of that keeps our bodies going. It's the first thing. Breathing air is the first thing we've done since we were born. It's the last thing we do before we die. And I like to think about it as like what air is to fish. Sorry, what water is to fish, air is to people. If you take the fish out of water, they'll flop around for a few minutes and then die. If you take the human out of the air, same thing happens. So from the fish's perspective, it's kind of the exact same thing. And it's pretty magnificent that the only place that we know of that there's breathable air is above the sea, and roughly where the clouds are. Like once you get up to 10,000 feet, there's we can't even survive there very well. So there's like this very teeny tiny layer of air, and it's gaseous air that we're able to live inside of. So it's funny that we talk more about, when we talk about food more than we talk about eating, we talk about water more than we talk about drinking, but we talk about the act of breathing more than the actual air that we're breathing in. So you have people doing holotropic breathing, sometimes in very polluted environments.
That's a good point.
It's like when until recently, it was like drink your 8 cups of water a day. And then in the last, I don't know, decade, let's say, it's like maybe filtered water really matters. And now we were realizing that maybe reverse osmosis took it too far. And maybe the plastic vessel that we're transporting our water in is actually problematic. So the
Mm,
air awareness is growing rapidly. And I would say before COVID, the air awareness was like 20 years behind water. And now it's more like 10 years because there was a bit of a awakening or an awareness to just like PPE and masks and air and how, oh shit, you can get sick by breathing. And if you look at like a mold, just as an example, or allergies, if a lot of people have mold problems, and if the only way, there's 4 ways things can get in your body: eating it, drinking it, absorption, and breathing it. So
mm,
when you look at mold and allergens and a lot of other things, the air is breathing it is how it gets in our body through our air. So air quality is very, very similar to anyone who's already thinking about the food they eat or the water they drink. Air is just it's how we need to get our oxygen and what we need to survive. But in that air, sometimes it's not so clean. And the last thing I'll say is you would never take a glass of water from a pool or an ocean or a pond and be like, it's clear, therefore it must be clean. Because we've been educated to know that there's invisible things to the naked eye that could really make us very sick in that water. And air is a little bit more slower and a little bit more chronic over time. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in that air that now that we've polluted it so much, and this is a new problem. If we went back like hundreds or thousands of years ago, unless we were breathing like coal or wildfire smoke, the air would be perfect. You would not need an air purifier. It would be a crazy idea because trees and rain and wind is nature's air purifier. Unfortunately, we've compromised that stuff greatly.
mm. And you bring up a really good point because, especially with the fires, I mean, we hear about there's fires all the time and depending where you live and you're breathing in that smoke. I remember I went to I think it was Oregon and it was in the summer, it was in August and there was a wildfire that was going on and I went to an organic farm. I went to go look at it was a company that brought me out there that I was working for. And the smoke, I mean, you couldn't even be outside for too long because of the smoke. And I would venture to guess that what's outside is also inside the home. So being able to filter your homes would be super important. Okay, so let's go into so smoke is one example of a pollutant. What are some other examples as well of things that we need to be
Yeah,
mindful of, especially inside our homes?
sure. And another thing on the smoke front, often when there's a wildfire smoke, and for those of you out there, my background was in wildfire smoke, flood, mold, and hurricane cleanup. So I would go
Oh,
into
wow.
really disastrous areas and clean up after natural disasters. And that's what even inspired me to start Jaspr in the first place. So with a lot of wildfires, though, it's not just the wildfire smoke. It's not like your campfire s'mores, which is already very problematic, but homes burn, cars burn, factories. So every WD-40 and can of paint and car is in that toxic plume of smoke. So it's not just the trees that you're breathing in, it's also the all of the chemicals that got burned as well.
Mm,
So with those big regional wildfires, it's a lot of stuff that's in there. And the smoke and the other contaminants, an area can stay polluted for several months after a wildfire. It's in the soil, it's in the water, it's in the general ecosystem. There's piles of ash from houses that have burned, and then the wind kicks it back up. So the other things, the big things to consider, I'll break it down to outdoor pollution and indoor pollution. Outdoor pollution is everything from general, emissions from cars, the rubber tires from cars. Where do you think that goes? And other people's indoor pollution can become your outdoor pollution. Like if someone's using bounce sheets and chemicals in their environment, or restaurants that are cooking with harmful stuff, factories that are polluting, pollen, allergens, mold. So there's a lot of stuff outside that can be problematic. And then indoor pollution, we also have mold. And I'll say outdoor and indoor pollution both impact you inside because where do you think the air in your house comes from? It's not any cleaner. In fact, it's 5 to 10 times dirtier. On average, indoor air is 5 times dirtier than outdoor air. So inside, you got the mold from leaks and high humidity in a trapped environment. You got the VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, which is just a fancy way of saying chemicals and gases, which are emitted from furniture, paint, carpets, your tables, your cleaning products, your personal care products, candles, incense, like anything that was like manufactured that you bring into your home has a period of off gassing. So depending on what it is, there's a certain time. It could be 3 months, it could be a year. And then yeah, cleaning products. Then you also have, unfiltered water can be very problematic for your air. Dishwasher soap. So you basically have like cleaning products and chemicals and off gassing. And then the really big one is the other two big ones are pets, um, and cat litter and other pet products, but also cooking. Cooking is the biggest source of indoor air pollution by far. So that's kind of like the high level bird's eye view of the things that are in our air that we would rather not be breathing that we are.
It's interesting when you mentioned cooking. When we renovated our home, one of the things that like I said, I've been in the health and wellness industry a really long time and just learned a lot over the years. And I remember reading how gas stoves are not good for us. And so we renovated our kitchen and we were working with a kitchen guy and I was like, I don't want a gas stove in my new kitchen. He's like, "What?" It was like to him, the fact that I wanted to use an electric stove, it was like, how can you actually do that? It's like heresy. What do you mean? You have like this great kitchen and now you're gonna
Yeah.
put in like an actual like electric stove? Anyway, so tell us a little bit about that because one of the things and we're going to talk about the Jaspr, which is why I'm so excited to have you on because I've tried a lot of different air filters over the years, but this is like next level. And one thing I noticed is that when we're cooking, even on my electric stove or even wherever, it doesn't matter where you're cooking, it literally, and I keep it in another room, it changes, it goes up. Like you could see the readings go up. So talk a little bit more about that. Like, why is a gas stove an issue? And again, for those of you who have one, like what can you do? There's always solutions, right? It's not, you're not going to go and change out your gas stove for an electric one, but talk a little bit more about the cooking.
So of the indoor pollution, the gas is not even the main culprit. It is a culprit. It's typically when I've measured the air quality in hundreds and even thousands of homes, it's typically about 0.5 parts per million of carbon monoxide in the home. Some people say that's a acceptable limit. Others say that there's no acceptable limit. So ventilation is obviously going to be your friend then. So just when it's not too hot or too cold or too polluted outside, keeping windows cracked can be helpful. Um, but it's
Or
actually the
events.
cooking. What's that?
Okay,
Or
what about
vents?
events? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Bathroom fans, range hoods,
Right.
over your stove. Some range hoods have the first fan speed that's very silent. Others are a little bit more aggressive. I actually had a call with Kohler yesterday to help them design a bathroom fan that is automatic. So that way, when you shower, this humidity or high CO2 will just automatically turn on and off, and you'll never have to touch it.
That's amazing.
Um, it's crazy that, to me, it's crazy that it's 2024 and our vents above our stoves, we have to turn them on and off. The fact that Jaspr can detect your cooking across the house and your stove doesn't even detect the cooking and it's right there. How much better would it be if you just start cooking and it
Totally.
ramps up and it ramps up and down based on the amount of pollutants that are coming off the stove?
That's brilliant.
So maybe one day Jaspr will make that too. Um, so yeah, the it's problematic because first of all, like seed oils are definitely worse. Non-stick pans are definitely worse. So first of all, like cooking with a good pan and good oils and good food is like step one.
Hmm.
Also, make sure your vent is working. So if you're take a tissue and do a tissue test. So put your range hood on fan speed 1 or 2 or whatever speed you use it on, and then make sure that the range hood, the vent, is pulling the tissue up. Then number two, make sure that it's actually venting outside. So oftentimes people find that the stove vent is venting like in a wall cavity, in an attic, in a cupboard above the stove. It's not actually venting outside.
Right.
So you're just taking it from one room and you're putting it in another. So making if your stove is not if your vent's not pulling the tissue up and holding it there, it's not pulling air. Same thing goes for your bathroom fan, by the way. Take a tissue, hold it up to a bathroom fan, and make sure that it's pulling up. Often in Canada and in the north where homes are built cold, in cold environments, I find this very frequent where stoves are they vent into the attic. bathroom fans vented to the attic. So what happened, and they're not actually going outside. So if the humidity from your shower is just dumping into your attic and not directly outside, then that's a big problem because all that humidity just gets trapped in your attic, and then there's a lot of mold.
Hmm.
Um, what as it pertains to so you want to make sure your bathroom fan and your stove, your vent, they're actually pulling the tissues and that they're actually venting outside. Because that's the whole point of the vent, is to vent outside. But I would say over 50% of the time, homes vents are not working properly.
That's first of all, that's crazy that a vent wouldn't go outside. I would think it would have to code, but I'm not a builder, so I don't know. But then you would think, isn't that the purpose? Like, why vent it into an attic that could just get it recirculated back in your home? I don't even understand the logic behind that. But again, I'm not a builder.
It's cheaper, it's faster. Just dump it into the attic. They figure, and if the attic itself is well ventilated, then theoretically that's okay. You vent to the attic, and then the attic vents to outside. But a lot of
Mm.
times when the insulation guys come through, they blow a bunch of the cellulose or fiberglass insulation, and it covers up all the baffles and the vents, and there's not enough ventilation in the attic.
Oh, I see.
So, I mean, if
Hmm.
you are going to have a moldy house, the least harmful place to have it is the attic because
Mm.
it's venting up and out mostly. But I'd rather not have any mold in my attic.
What about cleaning those vents? Because and like on your stove, it's a little bit easier, but especially like in your bathroom, you'd have to get a ladder to get up there. But how often should we be cleaning those vents?
I think like an annual cleaning party for a family to do is pretty cool. Roughly like a New Year's resolution or a holiday thing. Like take a family cleaning day where you're not doing like the tidying, but you're doing like the deeper clean, taking the plates out, taking the cutlery out, cleaning above the cabinets, under the beds, moving the couches. You kind of need help. That's not like general like housekeeper kind of tasks. Cleaning vents, having like an annual deep clean, I think is a great idea.
Mm,
Once a year is fine.
once a year is fine. Okay.
Yeah, once a year is great. I mean, if it was any more often, it would be annoying, and if it was any less often, you would forget to do it.
Good
So
point. It's like
if it
changing the batteries in your smoke detector. Same thing, like doing that twice a year or with the seasons or whatever they recommend. But I like that. So change it, so cleaning them once a year. And then cleaning them would be important because that way it's not blocking anything and
exactly,
from stopping to work, right?
exactly, it's not really working good if it's all caked up with dust and stuff. So on the cooking front, yeah, you want to make sure the range is working. And then when you're cooking, if you can, especially if you're like boiling stuff, using the back burners are way better than using the front burners, especially if you have gas, but for everybody, because the range hood, and I'm using the word range hoods and vent interchangeably, they mean the exact same thing. So when you're using the back burner of your stove, it's directly under the vent. Whereas if you're in the front, it's less under it.
Right.
So
Makes
the
sense.
the vent works a lot better for those back burners. Like if you have the three burners in the back, middle back is going to be the best. But like obviously it's kind of annoying to use a pan and like reach across the stove, so no one's going to do that. But when you're like simmering or you have stuff boiling and it's not annoying, using the back is definitely a good idea. When you're cooking, if you have air purifiers, great. If you don't, opening windows is definitely a great idea too. Like almost any time I cook, I'm opening my windows, my doors here. Like I let my house breathe a lot when I cook.
So you're saying, so just from a window standpoint, because you hear that a lot, like open your windows, let the air in. So you're saying because the air outdoor is less polluted than the air indoor, that's why it's a good idea to open your windows. And also I'm guessing open up a few windows so that you can get some type of air circulation going.
Yeah, if you can open a window on like opposite sides, it works really great. You get that cross ventilation, that cross breeze. But yeah, outdoor air is much cleaner, but that's also where it comes from. Like that's where the
Mm,
oxygen's at. So
yeah.
if our CO2, our carbon dioxide buildup gets high, like it's you smell the bacon in the house, you smell the wet dog in the house. You don't really smell it outside. We have a way bigger volume of air out there, and
Right.
then we have the sun, the wind, the trees, and the rain, which is nature's air purifier. But our homes are built so tight in this part of the world that we've left nature outside, so it can't do its job. It can't filter our air.
Yeah, the newer homes especially. So talk a little bit about mold because you mentioned mold and mold is a massive issue, especially for people who are in warmer climates, but also not necessarily. So tell us about, like, why is mold an issue? Why should we be concerned? And how can we purify more, clean our air from mold?
So mold is everywhere. You can't run or hide from mold. It's inside, it's outside. It's like saying pollen. It's just this, it's a thing. It's how allergic to it are you? Are you detoxing? Because like if you live on like New York City, the whole Northeast, New York, Toronto, Boston, Vancouver, Miami, California, these are all moldy places. Um, then if you go to like the desert, people run to like Arizona to get away from the mold. I've seen more mold toxicity in Arizona than almost anywhere
Oh, wow.
because you have huge temperature disparity from the indoor and the outdoor. So you get a lot of condensation.
Mhm.
Also, because the air is relatively dry, you're not used to breathing mold. So if you have a large mold exposure event, you're not equipped for it. And all that desert sand used to be underwater. So there's ancient mold that lives in the desert in the sand. So often when people have high levels of mold and they get a blood test and then they test the dust in their home, usually it's the exact same species of mold. So when they get these dust storms in Arizona, that gets them. So whether it's the big
Mm.
city pollution, like there's nowhere to run unless you want to move to like Vancouver Island and move to the rainforest or like Costa Rican jungle or something. It's hard to stay in a civilized area. And even if you move to super rural, then you have all the Roundup and all the other kind of chemicals that come with that type of living as well. So mold's everywhere. It's not really a problem outside because of all nature's air purifier and the wind and the sun and all that. Inside, it's a problem, just like it's a problem when we trap ourselves indoors. So it's pretty crazy, honestly. The fact that humans spend over 95% of our time indoors. And like, if you think about this, there's a term called zoochosis that I've been really interested in lately, which is this, it's what happens to animals that live in captivity.
Mm.
Um, Elephants live 17 years in the zoo, but 55 years in the wild.
Wow.
Dolphins swim 100 miles a day in the wild and like nothing in captivity. So when you start looking at basically all animals in captivity in zoos and stuff, all of them have mental health issues, depression, anxiety, arthritis, obesity, cancer. Like sounds like another type of sounds like humans, right? Like
Mm.
so I like to joke that the subdivision is the zoo and the homes are our cages. And even in a maximum security prison, they spend an hour outside each day. This is more than most free people spend outside.
Hmm.
So it's pretty crazy when you think about it. You look at the study of animals in captivity versus the wild. It's like
Hmm.
humans are often longing for nature, but we've really removed ourselves from it. So yeah, now we're kind of getting chronically ill. And you know, some people think it's the food, some people think it's the water, some people think it's the air, the toxic lifestyle, the social media, whatever it is. I think it's a combination, but I definitely think being trapped inside away from the wild is very unnatural. And then when we have a living room in a modern home, the living room is usually just two couches facing a TV. Like the way that homes are currently designed is just very they don't breathe. They're not designed for human connection. It's designed to stay inside in an airtight box staring at a screen on a wall. Sounds kind of like the animal at the zoo. And mold is a problem because mold is pissed off that you've trapped it in that environment. So when you take in the mold and you've basically boxed it into this tight, it didn't ask to come inside your house. It's just trying to survive. How does it survive? By releasing mycotoxins and trying to duplicate and replicate and proliferate. And unfortunately, some of that happens inside of us. So mold, the easiest way to deal with mold is detox, filter your air. Because like I said at the beginning, you're not drinking the mold, you're not rubbing it on your skin, so you're not eating it. So usually mold is an air problem. The good thing about mold spores is they're very easy to filter out of the air. Very, very
Mm.
easy.
Well, that's good.
So with reasonably good air filtration, if you do an air filter, you don't need to do a test. I've done thousands of them. But when you are filtering the air in your house, you're going to get a 95+% in mold spore reduction. So it's like one of the most harmful particles for us indoors, also one of the easiest things to filter.
Well, that's good news that it's easy to filter. That's great.
It's a blessing and a curse that we spend so much time inside. The curse
Mm.
is that's too much time inside. The blessing is there's this one environment that you can make have your sleep sanctuary, your clean air sanctuary. You can dial in the lighting. Like I think it's one of the cheapest things relative to everything else we spend our money on is dialing in the health of our home, because
Hmm.
like, food and exercise, very important, very time consuming, and also very expensive. People spend tens of thousands of dollars a year on their food. They spend thousands of dollars a year on water. They just don't realize that it's one bottle of water here, one sparkling water there, their water bill from the city. It adds up. And then they have like no budget for their air or their lighting or their sleep. So that once you've dialed in your home's environment, it's like you can really turn that negative into a positive for a few $1,000s.
Hmm. No, I'm a big fan of indoor hair, especially in homes that don't have a lot of circulation in them. So I feel like having an air filter, it's kind of like an insurance policy, is the way I look at it. But ever since I've got my Jasper, what I find fascinating is how it changes. Like I mentioned, the cooking, like that to me, I think that was like kind of like a really big surprise to me because I knew cooking will obviously emit certain pollutants, but I didn't realize the amount that it does, and then how long it takes the house, or at least my house, to come back to those normal ranges, like back
How
to
long does it
that green
take?
range. It depends on how much we're cooking and what we're doing, but I mean, it could take, I don't know, an hour maybe, sometimes it depends. Like if it's a dinner, like depends what we're making. But actually, I think maybe around, you know what, I actually didn't really like sit and time it, but I'm guessing
But
maybe
no,
around
you
an
don't need to
hour.
time it, but like more than 20 minutes and less than 90 minutes.
Yeah, like I'm thinking maybe around an hour-ish, like if we're making like a full-on dinner. But I'm gonna,
And
now
that's
that
to
you
clean the
mentioned it,
air, and that's to clean the air in the whole home.
yeah, like, so
Um,
I'm gonna pay
it,
attention though. Next time we do it, I'm gonna pay attention and time it, and then I'll let you know.
like you have like a fairly good sized house and one Jasper. So
Yeah,
here's the
one
cool
Jasper.
thing. If you have an air sensor in a home, with no Jasper, no air filtration at all, that could take 2 or 3 days for the levels to come back. So
Wow.
everyone's sitting at home cooking, no idea, because it's like the fish don't swim away from the polluted parts of the ocean because they're in it. So it's like when people come in, that smells good. The chef never gets to smell her own cooking or his own cooking because like you're in it, you're there for the change. But then someone comes home like, ooh, like this smells awesome, or this doesn't smell so awesome. So when you're in the environment, you don't really notice that fluctuation. And when you're cooking, all of those chemicals, so yeah, you get a lot of chemical off-gassing compounds from cooking, because when you have high heat and you have temperature, it creates PAH, which is polysteric aromatic hydrocarbons, which is the same thing that we would test for after wildfires, because of the
Mm,
high heat and the protein. So it's not
okay.
like it's just the meat and the oils, other chemical reactions are happening. And like just because you could take steak and eat it doesn't mean you can breathe it. Your digestive system is way more adept to dealing with it and breaking things down than your respiratory system, where you cause a lot of inflammation and problems in your airways. Um, so yeah, and then all that cooking particulate, the gas, the smoke, etc., that doesn't just leave your house. That gets embedded in your furniture, your clothing, your
Mm.
carpets. It has nowhere to go. So anything that can get wet from water can absorb water, can also absorb air.
What
So
about smell? So if you, let's say you cook and
yeah,
you leave your house and then you come back, I don't know, 5, 6 hours later and it still smells. Does that mean that there's still particulates in the air?
it means there's something. I mean, odors are gases, not necessarily particulates. The new actually Jaspr filter that you'll get for your next filter, we were able to triple the amount of carbon in the filter, so it's even better by far at odor reduction now.
Oh, interesting.
Um,
Okay.
but yeah, you could filter out the most harmful particles, but still have the residual odors and gases. But like yeah, sometimes it could take a couple of days to clear all the way out. But the problem is those odors they get absorbed into the surfaces. So even though you're filtering the air, it could be absorbed in your house and kind of like slowly releasing. Which is why if you filter your air, you deal with that stuff before it becomes a surface problem. Like when I was cleaning up mold and toxic environments, it was always a two-pronged approach, surface and air. And it's crazy that the housekeeping in hotels and the way we clean our homes, we spend all this money and time wiping down counters, but we're not even cleaning the air. It's like, where do you think the dust comes from on your countertop? It does not emerge from the wood, it comes from the air. So really a thorough hygienic home or hotel or whatever needs to have a two-pronged approach of cleaning the air and cleaning the surfaces. If you have a fish tank, you got to clean the bowl and change the water. You can't just clean the bowl and leave the dirty water in there.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And it's true that the dust that you see is coming from the air. I remember I interviewed this woman, her name is Leah Segedy, and she talked about dust and what you find in dust. That
Oh
was
yeah,
like crazy surprising to me. Maybe you could just explain that a little bit
yeah.
because, oh my gosh.
Absolutely. So dust itself is a little harmful, but it's not the worst thing. It's the most visible thing. But dust is like the airplane. It everything else hitches a ride on it. So of course you have dust mites, which are attracted to dust. Those people are very allergic to. But if you take a dust sample, you're going to find mold. You're going to find insect parts. You're going to find chemicals, pollutants, danders, chemicals, like everything that's in your air. You could actually test in your dust.
Right. Yeah. That's why, like,
Well,
when
I
you're
mean, the
dusting
good
your
thing
house,
is
ladies, wear a mask
you
or
sh
something so you're not
and you
breathing.
should well, you shouldn't actually have much dust in a home. Like, we don't even really have to dust. Like, we don't get dust. I will say we have 4 or 5 Jaspers in my house,
Oh,
but
okay. Well, that helps.
us it helps a lot. The dust is a symptom of you don't see dust on the sidewalk or on your driveway or on your lawn. Like, dust, you might see dirt accumulating on your car, but dust is really an indoor air problem generally because
Mm.
we've trapped the nature outside. So we have no wind, we have no fresh air, we have no UV, and then we have no filtration system. So then we have a dust problem. But if you have really good clean air, you really shouldn't have much dust.
Okay, so let's talk about Jasper because
Sure.
we've mentioned it a lot, and so start with your story. You said before that you were you were working in cleanup of mold and hurricanes and all different things. So explain what gave you the incentive or why you started Jasper, and then let's talk about what Jasper is. And I know that you
Sure.
also have a special offer for our listeners if they're interested in getting one. So let's start
I
there.
do. Yeah. So, and the reason we do the special offer thing is like you can't find Jasper on Amazon or Walmart or Best Buy or Home Depot or Costco because first of all they would make the price so much higher, and they kill our ability to offer incredible service. So that's why my job is to just raise air awareness as a whole. And I'd rather give this instead of giving the wholesale price to the store, I'd rather just give it to health conscious people. So with respect to
Why you
the
started it?
yeah, why we started. My background was in flood fires, mold, hurricane cleanup. So the big moment was I was in a wildfire in Fort McMurray, Alberta, the biggest fire in Canadian history, and like everybody was super sick. They don't talk about that part on the news so much, but people were sick. Like pediatricians are like slammed at the door, pulmonologists, people are in nebulizers, CPAP machines.
Mhm.
Like the air is really bad, and everyone's autoimmune conditions are through the roof. Like asthma gets exasperated. So I was testing the homes, and I got to see how compromised people's air was. But in the restoration world, we were using these big industrial air purifiers for mold cleanup and fires called air scrubbers. They're like 100 pounds. They're big. They're heavy. Um, they're amazing though. They clean the air incredibly well. But the downside is they're very loud and they're large and they're ugly. They would take up half your hallway. And in contrast, the air purifiers that you would normally get for a few $100s on Best Buy and Amazon, they're like kettles. Like if you're trying to heat your bathtub, you need a water heater. You can't use a kettle. If you're making a cup of tea, kettle's great, but you can't heat your bathtub with a kettle because the water is going to cool down faster than you could even heat it up. So it's just too small of a tool to get the job done. And the idea for Jaspr was how to create something that's like commercial grade, but made from steel. So like commercial grade, powerful, high performance, but also quiet, beautiful, and smart. Because I realized sometimes my customers would unplug the air scrubbers from their home, even when they have a sick child in the house. They're like, it's so loud, it's so ugly, like it's taking up. I can't stand that machine in my house. But then they would get like a couple Best Buy air purifiers, and the air would be compromised again very quickly. It doesn't really do much. So the idea for Jaspr was a commercial grade product that's
Mm.
also beautiful and quiet and seamlessly integrates into your home, and that would actually look good and increase the aesthetical appeal of your home. You know, like going back to the kettle analogy, you could buy a kettle online for like $19 at Walmart. It will heat the water. It'll be made from plastic. It won't turn itself off automatically. You know, it's going to look ugly, so you're going to have to stash it away every time. Or maybe for 80 or $100, You can get, you know, a nice matte black kettle or glass kettle, and it will look really nice on your countertop. It also actually looks nice. It's decor. You don't have to hide it away. It's glass. It's not going to leach into your water. This is the same thing as that. So we wanted to make a premium air purifier for people who wanted a commercial grade product that wasn't loud and ugly.
It is really beautiful, actually. And you even have a mode if you sleep, if you put in your bedroom, that they can go to a dark mode. So if you want no light in your room, it could turn off. And it's gorgeous looking. It absolutely is. You've done a great job with that. So how does Jaspr actually,
Yeah.
before I ask you, I do want to know, how does it differ from other air filters? Because there's a lot of different air filters on the market. So
Yeah.
and you know, there are some that are cheaper than others. So I'm guessing it goes back to your kettle analogy. How does it differ? And then I want to know, what is it actually filtering? So is it everything that we talked
Sure.
about?
Sure. Good question. Great question. So Jasper used to be $2,000, by the way. It was 1975 for the first 3 years, and we only
Oh,
sold
wow.
to doctors and dentists. We used to be
Okay.
called Jasper Medical,
Okay.
and we were selling. And in the medical space, we were the cheapest air purifier. Other ones were $3, $4, $5, $6, $7,000, and they weren't very. They were hideous. They didn't work very good. Like doctors are used to getting totally ripped off. So
It's crazy.
we're in almost thousands of dental offices, especially in Canada, lots in the US as well, but like big time in Canada. When we launched, it was all medical. And then the hygienist started to rave about the Jaspr to their patients. And then they started to ask about it and buy it for their homes. And then we started to get huge wins with asthma and sleep quality. You know, people's seasonal allergies were gone. Their sleep quality went up a ton. We did a sleep study with Aura Ring last month. 150 people using Aura Rings tested their sleep, and the average person slept 25 more minutes per night, 18% more deep sleep, and 5% faster to fall asleep. It's like
That's
this subtle
amazing.
white noise machine that
I
also
have my
filters
Aura
your
ring.
air. Oh,
I should
nice.
try that.
You should. Yeah, it
I
was
should try it.
staggering. We're going to publish the study very soon. Um, so yeah, the big differences are airflow is number one. So an average air purifier has somewhere like 80 CFM is pretty normal, cubic feet per minute. That's like how much air it moves.
Okay.
Jasper's is 430.
Okay.
On fan speed one, a lot of other air purifiers are 10 to 20 CFM. Jasper's a little bit over 100. So Jaspr on its silent smart mode is doing more than a little air purifier is on the loudest fan speed.
Wow.
So because of its size, it's able to be silent and still be very effective.
Okay.
So the size matters a lot. It's made from steel instead of plastic. Plastic is already very polluting. And the reason we have a lifetime warranty is because Jasper is built to last about 30 years. Like we're expecting to replace people's Jaspers every 25 to 30 years.
I was going to ask you, is it a lifetime war? So it's one and done. So you're buying one and then that's it. You never have to replace it again.
Exactly. And it's very expensive to be cheap because why do most of these cheap air purifiers have a 1 year warranty? They would love to have a longer warranty. It would help them sell more, but they're not confident it's going to last more than 1 year. So
That's
the
huge.
the quality and the integrity of the product,
Wow.
the aesthetic, the fact that it's made out of steel and all commercial grade components. The sensor is very accurate. It also shows you the air quality in real time. So when you're cooking, when you're cleaning, if wildfire smoke's blowing through your town, you can actually know what's in your air, know how polluted the air is, and see it work in real time. So people have owned a lot of air purifiers. They're always like, I didn't know if the other ones were working. With my Jaspr, I know it's working. I can see it working. I can feel it working. And the two best places to put it would either be in a living room on smart mode, so it adapts to all the cooking and cleaning, or in your bedroom on fan speed 2 with dark mode. So that way it can
Mhm.
really improve your sleep and it can really decrease the pollutants in your kitchen cooking environment. And like people spend $7,000 to $10,000 all the time getting a water filtration system. They'll spend many thousands of dollars getting a fridge or a stove or 25 grand renovating a bathroom. And even with that $7,000 to $10,000 water filtration system, you also have to change the filters in that too.
Every
So
year?
if you're thinking about it as an air purifier, yeah, it seems expensive. But if somebody buys 3 or 4 Jaspers with the discounts in the bundle, it's like $2,500 for 4 Jaspers.
For
And then they have
4? Oh,
then
wow.
they have a whole home air filtered system. So instead of thinking about it like a singular air purifier, when you think about you want your whole home to be a clean air sanctuary, all of a sudden it doesn't seem that expensive.
So, what I'm so okay. My mind is spinning. I'm like, okay. So you mentioned before you have 5 Jaspers in your home. Now that's a lot. Obviously, the average person, that might be costly. So now you're saying $2,500 for 4. So how much is it for 1 unit? And how much does that 1 unit actually purify? Like how big of a square foot area?
So it's a lot of people talk about square foot. It's totally the wrong way to think about it
Okay.
because it's cubic volume that matters. So anytime
Okay.
a brand is talking about square foot, I'm very skeptical because
Okay.
8-foot ceilings or 16-foot ceilings. And
Ah,
they don't tell you how
okay.
much cleaner the air is. So often if you read the fine print, they're really only making, when you see this little air purifier, it's like we cover 1,000 square feet. It's like, yeah, they cover it by making the air 10% cleaner. Like
Right.
that's not the I'm looking to make the air 80% cleaner, 90% cleaner.
Okay.
So we're really good in a single room up to about 1,000 square feet with 8-foot ceilings. We can do a really good job. So, one for like a living room is great. And then one in the bedrooms is also really good. Now, because you have like a furnace and a furnace system mixing the air, no matter where you put it in the home, it does contribute to the whole house. But
Okay.
like good is at least having one in your bedroom. Better is having one in your bedroom and one in the kitchen living room area. And best is having one in each bedroom and one in the living room area.
Hmm. And how much is 1 Jasper?
So like I said, they used to be 2,000. We got them down to 13.99. Now we got them all the way down to 9.99. And if people buy more, they're even cheaper. So
Okay.
if you get
That's what you're saying, the
2,
bundle.
they're 8.99. If you get 3, they're like 8.49. If they get 4, it's 7.99. And
Mm.
then this episode comes at October 25th. So we have a 20% off discount that will last for until the November 1st, basically. So for the first week. And then after that week, that code will still be 10% off forever. So code Morphus, if I'm pronouncing that correct.
Morphus, yeah.
Morphus, Morphus. So our website's jaspr.co, no E, jaspr.co. And yeah, with code Morphus, so it's 20% off for the first week, then it's 10% off. And that combines with our bundle. So let's say somebody buys 2
Mm.
Jaspers, they get our 10% plus the 20% off.
Oh, that's
Um,
amazing.
and then the filters in the
Wow.
future, that's bundled with lifetime warranty. And I'm very proud of our warranty. Our warranty is pretty badass. So let's say your Jasper breaks. Doesn't matter if it's 3 months later or 7 years later. We ship you a brand new Jasper the next day. You take the new Jasper out of the box. You put the old Jasper in the box. So no, you don't have to keep the box or the packaging or the receipt or any of that. Then in there, we already give you the prepaid UPS shipping label,
Wow.
and we pay to have UPS come pick it up off your porch at 9 a.m. the next day. So I
Wow.
hate when I have a product with a warranty and I gotta go get some weird shaped box. Then I gotta print some labels. And then I gotta pay to ship it. And then they put a hold on my credit card. Then I gotta go to FedEx or Canada Post or UPS. Half a day is gone, $100 in shipping. Then they might even decline my warranty. So we don't do any of that. We don't put a hold on people's credit cards. They don't have to go to UPS. We ship them a new one first. They take the new one out. They ship back the old one. We believe that it's better business is to just trust your customers instead of making them, because otherwise you have this customer service department who's designed to politely say no and reject people. It's much better business to just trust your customers. If they say it's broken, it's broken. And if it broke, that's our fault, not your fault.
So do you do an assessment on the ones you get back? Like, are you trying to figure out what happened?
We do, and there's the same couple of issues, but it only happens to like 2 or 3% of them. You
Okay,
can
so it's like a small
nothing's
amount. Yeah.
small amount. What we do is we actually refurbish them and then we donate those to daycares and schools and
Oh,
stuff like
that's a
that.
great idea.
Because we don't want to donate them and then we'll ship them back and stuff like ship them again. So once they ship back to us,
That
to lower our carbon footprint, we find schools, we donate them. So they're on their own for filters and stuff, but they still get the lifetime warranty. And at least we give units into schools. That seems to be the best use of them.
Okay, first of all, I love that because so many schools have terrible air. And I
A lot
remember
of sick kids.
oh my God, a lot of sick kids. And I remember my kids' old school had asbestos in the school because it was so old and they didn't want to like tear it down. And like, oh, I love that, Mike. I think that is such a great idea for the ones that are breaks. Now it's a small amount, obviously, but I still think that it's a great idea that you're helping it. Okay. So last question, or one of the last questions before we end today's interview. So you were saying, and I just want to make sure that we clarify, what does Jasper actually purifying in the air so people can feel
Yeah,
very
I'm
comfortable?
glad you asked again. So the things that Jaspr removes, there's 3 filters in one. It's a 3-in-1 filter. There's a HEPA, a carbon, and a pre-filter. The pre-filter is to remove those like big particles before they get to the filter, like your big dust, pet fur, stuff like that. And then the HEPA is filtering out particles such as pollen, mold, bacteria, viruses. HEPA is the same thing they use in surgeries, it's the same thing they use in the Space Center. So that's all the particles, anything fungal, mold spores, pollen, allergies, cooking particulate, stuff like that. And then the carbon layer of the filter is filtering out gases, odors, formaldehyde, benzene, toluene, off gassing from your furniture, your cleaning, your hairspray. So pretty much every particle that we spoke about throughout this episode, Jaspr is filtering.
Amazing. Amazing. And you know what's great? I mean, first of all, there's so many great things about it. I mean, the design, everything we talked about, the design, the quality of it and the features of it. But I love the fact that you're making it accessible to people. I love the fact that you're bundling it. So if people want to get more, that you make it more affordable. I love the fact that you actually add our discount on top of that already discount. And I love the fact that it's getting rid of so many things. And the fact that you have a history and understanding how to clean up our air. So, I mean, obviously, you could tell you're very passionate about this. And for me, as an entrepreneur, from one entrepreneur to another, I love when the passion shines through. And that's why I was excited to have you on today, because we want you ladies to feel good, to have clean air, to sleep better. Do you have other studies as well, other than sleep, that you've been doing or
Mold.
going to do?
We just did a big mold study
Mold.
where it was in a hotel sized room, 500 square feet, 8 foot ceilings, and in 1 hour we removed 87% of all the mold in the air, and that was just in 1 hour. So within 3 hours, it'd be more like 99%. So we did the mold study, we did the sleep study, but we're always open to studies anytime that whether it's physicians or customers or anybody asks us to do a particular study, we'll go and get the study done. So is there any studies you have in mind that you'd like to see done?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. Okay.
Well, yeah. Well, you
I
don't have to
like
decide
it.
now, but if you or any listeners or your audience, whether there's a certain particle in the air that people are concerned about, whether it's bacteria or cooking stuff or dust or any particular studies, if anybody ever has ideas for us, send us an email and we'll go and conduct the study, because we don't want anybody to ever like we love
Love
spending
that.
reinvesting into proof and evidence, and we don't know what people want to see unless they tell us. So if anybody out
Love
there
that.
wants a particular study done, just tell us and we'll get it done.
How could they reach you if I mean, first of all, I love that you're asking
Team
for our feedback.
team
So
at Jaspr.co. So
team at
team
Jaspr.
jaspr.co. Team at jaspr.co. Yeah, feedback. Also, if you have questions about we don't have a sales department or a customer service department. We only have an air education department. So everybody here actually used to work in the field and was in homes and testing and stuff. So if you have questions about your environment, your mold, your construction, whatever, hit us up. You'll get a real person and probably a voice note response walking you through your situation. Whether you buy a Jaspr or not, we're here to help.
I love that. Mike, this is amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for giving our listeners that special discount. I
My pleasure.
appreciate you. I really do appreciate you and everything that you're doing to help us. So thank you so much. And just repeat the website one more time. We're going to put links to everything below anyways, and your social media.
jaspr.co. The code is Morphus, Morphus, and it'll be 20% off between October 25th and the end of the month. And then for anyone who this is not the right time, it'll still be 10% forever after that.
Forever after that. And your social media is Jaspr as well?
It is Jaspr Co.
Jaspr Co.
JSPR.co.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mike.
See y'all.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Mike, and I absolutely loved it. And I love how passionate he is about educating people about air quality. And, some of the things that he said that really resonated with me is that we spend so much time, obviously, taking care of what we're looking at what we're eating or putting on our body or filtering our water in many cases. And he's right, is that air is something we are breathing all the time. So it is something to consider, to be mindful of. And you can learn more at his website. Again, we put everything below, all the links below. If you want to purchase a Jaspr unit or a few of them, you could use the Morphus at your checkout to get your discount. And if you enjoyed the interview that we shared today, please rate and review our podcast. I would be super grateful. And please share it with a friend, because the more we share shows we care. So thank you for spending the last hour and a bit with me. As always, I know there's a lot you could be doing, but you chose to spend your time with me. And for that, I am grateful. I'll see you at the next interview.